Chapter 12. It clamped its icy jaws around us and sucked us into its frigid mouth. The sky opened and poured snow, and the winds, shrieking down from the mountain peaks, lifted the white powder and drove it into drifts, some of which I calculated to be as high as 10 feet. For 3 days the winds never let up. Our water supply froze, as did some of our food in the root cellar, though not the dried stuff nor the pork. We melted snow and drank that, and cooked the vegetables and ate them anyway. The beets were the worst. Our poor cow would have frozen in her tracks had we not brought her back inside the house. Romy had to give his room entirely over to her. The smell that came from it was not good, and was not now a laughing matter. Our electricity went off and stayed off, and now we were deprived of even the meager solace of the radio. Everybody grumbled, and I said for them to be thankful for the wood-burning stove and the kerosene lamps. I said to Romy that we should study, and we lighted one of the lamps and spread our books on the kitchen table, and had a lesson in geography. But it was one of Romy's sullen days, and one of my short-tempered ones, so we didn't learn much about the beautiful, sun-burnished Bahama Islands. Hating everything, most of all me, Romy said, "It wasn't like this when Roy Luther was alive. Why is that?" "It was like this," I said. "It was just as bad. You just don't remember." His thrust lip denied this. He fiddled with the lamp wick, turning it first high and then low. "Can Devola make us some fudge?" "No." "Why not?" "Because we can't afford the sugar. Things make it worse." Both with coats and headscarves on because the rest of the house was cold, Devola and Ima left the warmth of the kitchen to go make beds. On the pallet behind the stove, the pig snored and the rooster preened his feathers and hopped around searching for a forgotten morsel. Romy shuffled his books with his hands, explored the shape of his head, and gazed at me out of his eyes gaunt and bitter. "You're sure ugly." "Yeah, well, some people are handsome and some are smart." "I don't even think your hair's pretty anymore." "I never said it was. I've just been taking your word for it all this time." "You figured out where we're going to vacate to yet?" "Not yet. I'm working on it, though." "What are you studying?" "This price list Mr. Connell gave me. You see what it says here on the bottom? It says here that they're looking for new hands to make roping in their homes during the months of November and December. I wonder what kind of roping they mean." "I don't know. I don't care. It's snowing harder. I wish it'd stop." "It'll stop when the Lord wills it, not before." Romy turned sideways in his chair, moved his feet back and forth on the rung of it. He said, "The Lord has forgotten us. This land is forgotten. We're forgotten. We're forgotten people." So harsh he said that, but not with vigor. He said it like an old decayed man would say it, a truth filled with absolute despair. It was the most desolate, most disheartening thing I had ever heard anyone say, and I didn't have any answer for it. I looked at my brother and I thought, it's the truth. The Lord has forgotten us. This land is forgotten. We're forgotten people. I thought about man's hold on life, how painful its struggle, and I tried to think of the reason for people like us Luthers ever having been born. There must be one, I thought. Roy Luther said there was a reason for everything, and something within me stirred and my spirits lifted, and I thought, by the grace of the Lord, we're here, and what we make of it is our own affair. It's everybody's affair what they make of being here. The Lord hasn't forgotten us. Those are just Romy's words, and he is just a child. This land isn't forgotten, and neither are we. It just seems like we are out here in all the snow and cold and quiet. There was a sudden break in the wind. It ceased altogether just for a minute, and in this I heard an audible silence. I thought about spring, how it would come again. how the mountains would turn fresh green again, and wave upon wave of returning warblers would come flashing across them wildly singing. The bluets and the trillium and the lilies, all of the spring lovelies would bloom again. Spring would come, it always did. My name is Mary Call Luther, I thought, and someday I'm going to be a big shot. I've got the guts to be one. I'm not going to let this beat me. If it does, everything else will. I'm not going to let this beat me. If it does, everything else will for the rest of my life. I said, Romy, this is a bad time for us now, but it's going to change. All we have to do is hang on. Your name is Luther, same as mine, and that means you've got guts, same as me. Come on now, show them to me. You're crazy, he muttered. I'm sorry. You're crazy, muttered Romy, and slammed the study books into a pile, scooped them off. Sorry. One more time. You're crazy, muttered Romy, and slammed the study books into a pile, scooped them up, and ran off to Roy Luther's room. I heard him yell to Devola that he didn't want his bed made, that he liked it wrinkled. The cow was mooing to be milked, and I hollered for him to do it, but he wouldn't. Devola had to. An hour later, we missed him. We looked everywhere, but he was gone. I think I saw him put on his boots and his coat, tenderly offered Devola. But then, well, he told me not to watch him, so I didn't. Watch him do what? I asked. Devola hung her head. He said he was going to town to see Kaiser, she whispered. He told me not to tell you. So then I had to go after him. At the back steps, I sank in snow up to my waist. I struggled up out of it only to sink again. The wind bit into my face, and the snowfall was so thick I was almost blinded with its whiteness. Though there was nothing but the blinding snow and the beating, suffocating wind, I still screamed. Romy! Romy! Hoping somehow to see him rise up out of the drifts. Devola had opened the back door and was standing in its frame. She had Imogene by the hand, and the wind was streaming their skirts straight out from their bodies, and they were both crying, and I shrieked to them to go back. Go back! And Devola hesitated, but then drew Imogene back inside, and the door closed, and again there was just the blizzard and me out there. I floundered to the corner of the house and went around it, and cupped my hands over my eyes and peered out over the grim, glittering snowscape. The fence had sunk completely out of sight. Beyond where I knew it to be, the fields stretched empty, not one moving speck on them. There was only the wind and the snow. I floundered to the fence and found the gate and tried to push it open. For what reason I don't know, for at a time like that, what difference does it make whether you walk through a gate or just lift your legs and flop over? I lifted my legs and flopped over and fell face down in a deep pile of cold, wet snow. It closed over me, and for a minute I just lay there gasping, and I think bawling, and with a rushing blackness inside my head. But then the blackness cleared, and I said to myself, well, come on, guts, Luther. You're the one always carping about guts. Let's see yours now. And I pushed myself up and hobbled out to where I knew the road to be and started down the valley bawling, Romy! Romy! Every foot of the way. Halfway down the valley, I found him lying asprawl in a drift, near frozen. He didn't want to get up, but I made him. He said he couldn't walk, and that there was something wrong with one of his ankles. I said, that's too bad. I don't feel so good myself. But you're going to get up and you're going to walk home, Romy Luther. I'm not about to carry you. His ankle was badly sprained. Devola had to cut his rubber boot off. I said, while you're at it, cut his throat too. We could have been killed out there. A blizzard is nothing to fool around with. I should like to know what you thought you were doing. Romy gritted his teeth, and Devola pulled the slaughtered boot from his leg. He said, I was going to town to see Kaiser. What for corn's sake? To get him to pay his sister for his house and property so's we could stay on here. To get him to make the paper he signed. You think you could do that, huh? You think you could get him to change just like that, huh? Remy glanced at Devola and then Imogene and then looked at me. To hide the tears, he lowered his eyes. I was going to beg him, he whispered. I thought if I begged him, he'd make things right. Beg Kaiser peace, I said. Better we all go live in a hole in the ground. We're not going to beg Kaiser peace for anything, Romy. We're not going to beg anything from anybody. Charity is one of the worst things there is. It does terrible things to people. The tears slipped down and were angrily brushed away. What things? It demeans people. What's that mean? When you demean somebody, you make them smaller than they are. You conquer them and then they have to be humble and toady to you. For this to happen to us, for us to humble ourselves and toady to anybody, is one of the things I promised Roy Luther never to let happen. On my highest word of honor, I promised him that, and I mean to keep the promise. So you can just forget about begging Kaiser peace or anybody else for anything. If you sneak off again to try it, and I have to go after you and bring you back, I'll lock you in the root cellar and put you on bread and water for a week. Devola had applied snow to Romy's ankle until he howled with how cold it was. Now she was tearing strips from an old soft sheet to bind it. With deft fingers, she scooped homemade slippery elm salve from a jar, gently smoothing it on the swelling, took the strips and wound them round and round tight. Watching her, I thought, she should be a doctor or a nurse. There's so much more to her than people realize. Roy Luther never realized how much there is to her, and I myself am guilty of this too. And all of it is going to slip by and be wasted unless I can think of a better way for her. Oh Lord, help me to think of a better way for all of us. Outside, a new sound had begun. Rain. It rained all the rest of that day and all that night, eroding the snow, dissipating the wind-formed ridges of it, sheathing the bare branches and all of the valley in gleaming, brittle ice. At the window, with his crippled foot propped on a pillow, Romy reported smoke coming from the chimney of Kaiser's house. He didn't say it, but I knew he was thinking it the same as I. How short our time had grown, consumed by the blizzard and the rain, and how still there wasn't the sign of any answer for us in sight. We had had our reprieve, but now it was close to an end. Goldie Peace wasn't the kind to commute a sentence. She'd boldly set us out in the fields with the same time when the time came, and then she'd see that Roy Luther wasn't with us, and then she'd go flying into town and blab to the county people, and then they'd come and separate us, and then backward or forward and up and down, my mind had shuttled over the problem 1,000,000 times, and I couldn't see any answer for it but one. I would marry Kaiser Peace myself. 14 years or no, I'll do it. Kaiser was simple. He could be persuaded. And right after the ceremony performed in whatever place by whatever outlaw, I'd assert myself to my wife's rights. I'd make Kaiser pay Goldie Peace off for the Luther house and land and put the deed in Devola's name. And then right after that was done, I'd bid Kaiser farewell. And then in the peace God intended for us all, we Luthers would live in our part of the valley and Kaiser would live in his if he so chose. If he did so choose, I'd plant a row of dense trees between his place and ours so that I'd never have to look at him again, nor even his smoke coming up out of his chimney with the witch's keyhole near the top.